Nobody really likes doing any kind of research about tight ends. You kind of just pick one whenever you want to. Well, I'm here to do all the research for you. We're about to go over the tight end consistency numbers from 2021. Sit back, relax. Let's get it. Welcome into another video. This time we're going over the tight end consistency numbers. These are going to be super important because not a lot of tight ends are even consistent in the NFL. So being able to pick and choose which tight ends give you the best chance to win is going to be key to victory. Here we go. In our tier 1s, we have anybody that's finishing 70% or higher. Tier 2 will be anybody 50% or higher. And tier 3, anyone who finished at 40% or higher. Starting in the first tier, ranked number 1 in 2021 was Travis Kelce. Kelce played in 16 games last season and finished in the top 12 at 75% of the time, which was the best in the NFL. He finished top 6 63% of the time, between 7 and 12 12% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 25% of the time. Kelce has been a bona fide number 1 tight end for years. He took over for the years that Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham were always at the number 1 spot. Draft Kelce with confidence that his consistency should rise with Tyreek Hill being sent to Miami. Number 2 last season was Mark Andrews. Andrews played in 17 games last season and finished in the top 12 71% of the time. He finished top 6 65% of the time, between 7 and 12 6% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 29% of the time. Andrews is starting to push to become the new number 1 tight end for years to come. He is the focal point of the Ravens offense, and with no name wide receivers, it looks like Andrews is secure for a solid role in 2022. Now let's move on to tier 2 and talk about the number 3 tight end from 2021 and Rob Gronkowski. Gronkowski played in 12 games last season and finished in the top 12 67% of the time. He finished top 6 50% of the time, between 7 and 12 17% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 33% of the time. Seeing Rob Gronkowski at 67% consistency rate is quite shocking by many. Gronkowski used to be the true number 1 year in and year out tight end. With his age and injury concerns, I wouldn't think that you would see him so high, but even playing 12 games last season, he was still a solid producing tight end for you in 2021. If he comes back and plays for the Bucs this season, look for Gronkowski to once again be a top 5 in consistency. Next, we have the number 4 tight end from 2021 in George Kittle. Kittle played in 14 games last season and finished in the top 12 57% of the time. He finished top 6 50% of the time, between 7 and 12 7% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 43% of the time. I wish I could just feel good about Kittle's injury history. It seems like Kittle is always being dinged up for one reason or another. Kittle also has a sophomore quarterback this year, so his accuracy could decrease and you could see a dip in production from Kittle in 2022. Moving on to the number 5 tight end for 2021, we have Dalton Schultz. Schultz played in 17 games last season and finished in the top 12 53% of the time. He finished top 6 35% of the time, between 7 and 12 18% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 47% of the time. Schultz was the newcomer of the group in 2021. Schultz thrived as a weekly starting tight end for your fantasy team. Dallas has a good offense, and without Amari Cooper, look for Schultz to even get more opportunities to shine. Now we are at the number 6 tight end from last season. Let's talk about Dawson Knox. Knox played in 15 games last season and finished in the top 12 53% of the time. He finished top 6 27% of the time, and between 7 and 12 26% of the time. He finished outside of the top 12 47% of the time. Dawson Knox was a touchdown machine last season. I don't even expect him to have that same type of production from him this season. There will be tons of people flocking to Knox based off of last year's production, but you heard it here first. Stay away from Knox in 2022, as he's not going to give you the same production. On to the number 7 tight end from last season in TJ Hockenson. Hockenson played in 12 games last season and finished in the top 12 50% of the time. He finished top 6 33% of the time, between 7 and 12 17% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 50% of the time. TJ Hockenson did disappoint last season. There were many people out there who thought Hockenson was finally going to be able to take that leap for his team in 2021. Not only that Hockenson was injured, but in the 12 games he did play, only 33% of them were in the top 6. Hockenson has the talent, but I think the Lions organization is holding him back. Draft with caution in 2022. Now let's go over the number 8 tight end and the last player in this tier in Logan Thomas. Thomas played in 6 games last season and finished in the top 12 50% of the time. He finished top 6 17% of the time, between 7 and 12 33% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 50% of the time. Thomas is a tight end that you can get with one of your last picks in the draft, and when healthy, Thomas can be a consistent tight end starter for you. Now with Carson Wentz in the fold, look for Thomas to be one of the top tight ends this year, so long he can stay healthy. Now let's go ahead and move on to Tier 3 and talk about the tight end who finished number 9 last season in Hunter Henry. Henry played in 17 games last season and finished in the top 12 47% of the time. He finished top 6 18% of the time, between 7 and 12 29% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 53% of the time. Playing in the Patriots offense, you would think he would produce some amazing numbers at the tight end spot, just based on what Gronkowski was able to do, and it seems if Brady had more to do with that than Belichick. Henry will look to build more rapport with Mac Jones in 2022. Next we have the number 10 tight end from last season, Kyle Pitts. Pitts played in 17 games last season and finished in the top 12 47% of the time. He finished top 6 18% of the time, between 7 and 12 29% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 53% of the time. To say Pitts was a disappointment last season would be an understatement. Pitts was coming into the league with measurables that were unheard of. Not only Pitts, but the entire Atlanta offense was nothing short of a trash can. Pitts has immense talent, but with the Mariota throwing the ball, all the confidence is gone that Pitts can produce at a top level in 2022. On to the number 11 tight end last season is Zach Ertz. Ertz played in 17 games last season and finished in the top 12 47% of the time. He finished top 6 12% of the time, and in between 7 and 12 35% of the time, and then outside of the top 12 53% of the time. Ever since he came to the Cardinals, he was a very consistent player. Murray looked for him on key plays and looks to benefit in 2022 with an entire season with Murray. Now that Hopkins is out for the first 6 games of the season, Ertz could warrant top 5 production. Last, let's look at the number 12 tight end from last season, Tyler Higbee. Higbee played in 15 games last season and finished in the top 12 47% of the time. He finished top 6 7% of the time, between 7 and 12 40% of the time, and finished outside of the top 12 53% of the time. Higbee is a tight end for the best team in football. He does unfortunately play on the same team as Cooper Kupp, which warrants what seems like every single target in this offense. It seems as Higbee is there to pick up the scraps. Look for Higbee to be a low-end tight end 1 in 2022. Now let's go ahead and talk about the tight ends 1 through 12 and kind of sum up the consistency rankings for 2021. In the first tier, you saw Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Those are the clear number 1 and 2. Tier 2, we're starting with Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, and TJ Hockenson, and Logan Thomas. And then starting up for Tier 3, we're looking at Hunter Henry, Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, and Tyler Higbee. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you're not subscribed already, consider hitting that subscribe button for me. It would really help me out. We're pumping out all types of videos through this offseason to help better prepare you for your fantasy draft. I can't wait to see you on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.